And joining me now, just back from a trip to China, is the Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo. Secretary Raimondo, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you. Good morning.
Let me start with the fact that this is the fourth trip that a major administration official has made basically since the summer. It began with Secretary Blinken. Secretary Yellen went over there. Former Senator Kerry on climate talks went over there. And now you. And it feels as if it's sort of in a relationship here. We're doing making all the effort. We're trying to reach out to them as we try to, turn down the temperature. We've yet to see reciprocation from them. At what point do we stop asking?
Yeah. First, let me say that my counterpart, the Chinese Minister of Commerce, Minister Wang, did come to see me in the spring and invited me to China, which is, I accepted his invitation. Mm-hmm. So, it's not entirely true. He came here and it was a good visit. But, you make a good point. And the theme of my trip was we need dialogue, we need contact and communication, but we also need action. In my trip, even the most senior Chinese officials said all of the right things, said that they wanted to have a robust commercial relationship and treat American businesses fairly on the ground in China. And my message was actions speak louder than words. So I think you make a fair point, and we're looking to see whether China does do a better job at treating U.S. businesses fairly and workers, leveling the playing field for our workers.
But, insult to injury was they hacked your email right before you went. I mean, it was almost like it's a thumbing. Yeah. It almost feels like they were thumbing their nose at us. Okay, yeah, you can come visit, but we're going to do our best to find out everything you already know anyway. I mean, and I know you confronted them with this. I saw that report. But it does send a message of we're not that interested in engaging.
Look, they did hack me, which was unappreciated, to say the least. I brought it up clearly, put it right on the table. By the way, I brought up many of our grievances on behalf of our national security concerns, concerns of U.S. labor, concerns of U.S. business. Didn't pull any punches. Still, though, it's a complicated relationship. There's no doubt about it. We are in a fierce competition with China at every level, and anyone who tells you differently is naive. All of that being said, we have to manage this competition. Conflict is in no one's interest. We need to manage the competition responsibly. That's good for America. That's good for the world. And in that respect, I think our commercial relationship, which is very large and growing and underpins hundreds of thousands of U.S. jobs, our commercial relationship, if stable, can be kind of a ballast for the entire relationship. And anything we do that can create stability is, in fact, good for the American people.
When you look at it from their standpoint, regardless of how we feel about that they don't share our values, on the largest of scales. They really don't share our values, which really makes this relationship uncomfortable at so many times. But from their perspective, they may think all we're trying to do is to slow their growth, to keep them from becoming a power. What is their incentive to essentially acquiesce to our demands?
They do think that, Chuck. They're very clear in saying that. And I think no one is better on this point than my boss, President Biden, who's constantly saying sincerely, we have no interest to hold the Chinese people back. Chinese people deserve a prosperous economy. We have a lot of interest in holding their military capacity and modernization back. And we're going to do everything we can to do that. We're not trying to convince them so much as we are saying it's in our mutual interest to have a vibrant economic relationship, and the world is expecting these two superpowers to manage the relationship responsibly and stably. And they know that, Chuck. They know that, and they want that. Let me ask it this way. Is our hope,
when I look at their economy and I look at our economy, I know how the American public views our economy right now, but when you compare the two economies, we're in a lot better shape post-COVID than China is domestically on that front. Is that our real goal here? Do we think that maybe they'll essentially cry uncle and they'll realize we got to stop this antagonistic relationship with the U.S. because we need to improve our domestic economy? Is that our ultimate negotiating leverage?
Well, look, I'll say this. It's clearly true. The facts speak for themselves on this one, that when China was more market-oriented and reform-minded, their economy, they lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. I was in Shanghai. It's quite stunning to see the progress Shanghai's made in the past 20 years. And so it's clearly true that when they were more market-focused and reform-oriented, Chinese economy was stronger. And so that's my point. It's not so much leverage, it's that it does seem to be true that it's in their self-interest to be less antagonistic to U.S. business.
Let me move to one of the things that I think is a sticking point with the Chinese, and that's our decision to essentially erect our own superconductor industry here to try to de-risk, if you will, due to so much of the technology concentrated with Taiwan. Is it realistic that we'll have a superconductor industry here in this country before the end of this decade, or we'll only just be beginning to erect an industry by the end of this decade? What's a realistic timeline here?
Realistic timeline by the end of this decade is that we will have a large, deep, best-in-the-world semiconductor ecosystem. We're on path to do that now. We already lead the world in design of semiconductors. You can see that with the AI chips. We lead the world in software. We need to get back into the business of actually manufacturing leading-edge chips here and packaging leading-edge chips here. And yes, we will, by the end of this decade, have regained prominence and have that deep ecosystem, including research and development here in the U.S.
Is this is this issue here? I mean, are we going to be allowing American companies? Are we going to be exporting superconductor chips to China in a way that China doesn't feel like we're trying to choke their military technology and other things like that?
Well, we are trying to choke their military capacity. So if they feel that, that means our strategy's working. We are not going to, certainly on my watch, we are not going to sell the most sophisticated American chips to China that they want for their military capacity.
Are we going to prevent any company from doing that?
Said,
you can't do business with the United States in this industry if you want to sell those chips to China, correct? We're going to stick to that?
Absolutely, yes. But I do want to be clear. We will also still continue to sell, billions of dollars of chips a year to China, because the vast majority of chips that are made are not, the leading edge, cutting edge that I'm talking about. And that is hard. That's hard for people to accept. It's a kind of a nuanced, complex message and policy reality, but it is the reality. Because, the export controls are about national security, not an economic advantage. So we're going to be as strict can be and as hardline as possible, denying China the most sophisticated chips. But we're also going to sell, like I said, billions of dollars of less sophisticated chips, which, by the way, Chuck, is good for America. Creates revenue for American companies, which they can plow back into research and development, which allows us to lead the world in innovation.
Two quick questions. One having to do with the largest agency inside of commerce, which most of our viewers may not realize is NOAA, but that comes under your purview. There was a disturbing report earlier this week that the Hurricane Hunter planes were essentially out of commission. 2 are under repair. A third one was in use to track a dahlia, but then it went under repairs. What's the situation? Do we have out-of-date equipment? Is this a funding issue, or was it just bad luck?
So first of all, I want to be clear. They did complete their mission. The Hurricane Hunters did complete their mission. In fact, they're not allowed to continue to fly once the hurricane hits land. It's too dangerous. So, we got the job done. The rest of it was routine maintenance. One of these planes had been flying nonstop for 12 days and so had to go down for maintenance. All of that being said, we do need more resources, and Congress has just given us more resources. These planes are really expensive, as you might imagine, and we will continue to work with Congress. We plan to ask for even more resources because we need to get the job done.
It's going to be a busy hurricane season. Are these planes going to be able to do their job for the next 60 days, which is the height of hurricane season?
Yes, we will make sure that happens.
And finally, your interactions with President Biden. Are you confident he's got the ability to serve a full second term?
100%. I talked to him right before I left for China. He gave me the best advice of about 200 people that I spoke with. I talked to business leaders, other folks in the administration. He was sharp. He was clear. He's got a ton of energy, and I'm so excited to be on his team.
Secretary Gina Raimondo, the former governor of Rhode Island, by the way, for 2 terms there. Thanks for coming on, sharing your perspective.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.